Good morning. Welcome, everybody. I'm Karen Tamley. I'm the president and CEO of Access Living. We're a nonprofit, non-governmental organization located in the United States, serving the city of Chicago. Welcome to today's panel, Bridging the Digital Divide Through Training. I'm the moderator for today, and I want to welcome our esteemed panelists, who you will meet shortly. So just a little bit about my organization, Access Living. We're a center for service and advocacy that's run and led by disabled people for people with all types of disabilities. And our mission is to help disabled people get the services and supports that they need to live full, engaged lives of their choosing, while at the same time advocating for the systems change that's needed to create a fully inclusive and accessible world. Access Living, like so many here, continue to provide the essential services during the global pandemic, a pandemic that shined a light on so many of the long-standing disparities that disabled people faced across the globe. One of those glaring disparities that we saw up close at Access Living was the digital divide. The lack of internet connectivity, the inability to attain digital devices, accessibility tools, and the absence of training needed to use them effectively. As we all move to a virtual world literally overnight, to work, to conduct personal business, to visit the doctor, to shop, to maintain social connections, technologies increasingly become essential to maintaining our everyday lives. Yet in many places around the world, including my own city, we saw people with disabilities who did not have access to technology or training and were being left behind, ultimately having the effect of limiting opportunity, furthering isolation, and decreasing physical and mental health. To address this disparity, Access Living launched a technology pilot program to our consumers with disabilities, delivering computers with internet connectivity along with tech support and support needed to ensure usage. In the process, we learned a few important things. First, the most critical piece was in making our program successful was peer support. Disabled people helping other disabled people use the technology. We had set up a technology support line with an outside vendor, but what we quickly learned throughout the program was that none of our participants ever called the vendor for tech support. Instead, they called our staff at Access Living for help because they wanted to talk to someone with a disability who understood their experience. Second, we learned that devices without training, we were not able to truly help them achieve their goal of independent living. As we all know, technology is that tool to support independent living. And without that training, the devices did not truly help them as intended. So in response to these findings, we'll soon be launching a full technology outreach program at Access Living because we saw firsthand how meaningful digital access, assistive technology, and training can dramatically improve the lives of disabled people to access the world in ways they have never been able to before. Technology is a tool that can help people become more independent, to shop, to become employed, to find housing, to access community resources, and to be socially connected with friends, family, and so much more. So today, we want to shine a light on just that, how technology, along with proper training, can be a driving force in promoting greater independence, self-determination, and empowerment for people with disabilities across the globe. We're going to hear from 3 leaders who are working hard to make digital tools more accessible to disabled people, empowering lives in new and exciting ways. Panelists, I'd like to welcome you all with us today. And each of our panelists are going to give a presentation for about 8 to 10 minutes. I would urge you to just speak slowly because we do have language translation. And then after that, there'll be opportunity to answer any questions that our audience members may have. So with that, I'd like to turn to our first panelist, Julie ESHLEMAN. She's going to start us out. Julie is an assistive technology researcher at Leonard, Cheshire. And Julie, I would like you to give a little more detail about the work that you're doing, where you're from, and then present to us some of the work that you've been doing.
Sure, thanks so much. There we are. Thanks very much. Hi everyone, good morning. So like Karen was saying, I'm Julie ESHLEMAN. I'm an assistive technology researcher through the University of Stirling. And I'm going to share just a little bit about finding the sweet spot, the support sweet spot for technology support by describing to you a project that we did at Leonard, Cheshire. Oh, maybe a bit closer will be better. Is that better? Cheers. So what we found in the assistive technology project that I'm going to describe to you is that getting actual technology devices was not the challenging part. Especially during COVID, we got lots of donations of, you've seen lots of articles about what are we going to do with all the iPads. We got lots of donations for kit. Our problem was not getting kit. Our problem was understanding what to do with it and making people comfortable with it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I found the right button. So I'm showing an image from Leonard Cheshire's Hill House project of a man with spectacles sitting in his wheelchair, pointing across his living space saying, "Alexa, turn on a lamp." And there are white captioned words for what he is saying at the bottom of the image. So for the Hill House project, we had a donation at the beginning of COVID specifically to make sure that people living in this care home had technology to stay connected. But we wanted to take a very person-centered approach rather than buying everyone an iPad or buying everyone the same suite of kit. So we met with everyone to see what their interests were and to meet with the staff to see what kinds of comfort levels they had with different kinds of technologies. And then we started building an ecosystem starting with Amazon Alexa and the accessories that are associated with that. And then we started by making more common spaces more usable by more people around the home, like the living areas and common shared spaces. And then for the people who were interested, we moved into their living space to make something smarter. So for some people that was that they wanted to control their lights and their television with their voice or with a touch interface. For one person that was getting an Alexa controlled fish feeder to go on their aquarium so that he could feed his own fish. Instead of the staff getting to do that who support him. So we had a variety of training systems to make sure that the technology was really well matched with the people who were going to be using it. We used a variety of one-on-one support time, working with people who are going to be our disabled tech users, who are going to have their spaces smarter and wanted to be able to manage it. As well as supporting the people who were going to be using that technology to train their support workers on how they wanted them to engage with their space so that they had a little bit more control over these tools and their space and time. Once we had Hill House a bit sorted out, we also started making some modules for training online that taught a little bit about the Alexa devices that we were using, some common features, and kind of how to interact with spaces that had tech like this in it, mostly so that people didn't start turning off plugs and switches and turning off lamps so that everything kind of deactivates or drops off Wi-Fi. So giving everybody a little bit of knowledge about it. But once we sorted Hill House out, we wanted to scale because it was one site with one project team of 150 sites in the UK. And so we wanted to learn what is it that we can take from this place where we had a really intensive training team and really intensive delivery team, and how can we bring some of these benefits to more people in our network. So we used a support training module. I'm showing an image of two women who are seated in front of a large touchscreen television with a game pulled up. One of the women is reaching for the screen to move small icons to play the game, and she's supported by a care worker who is set back just a little bit. So we called this tiered model of support the I do it, we do it, you do it model, which is not I, Julie, do it. It was that our team do it. But at the top level, we kind of have a specialist assessment and delivery team. So we took the team of people who met with everybody, decided on the kit, and got it all set up, and we made them a regional hub. And so they are the people now who go around and do the things. We do it. We come in and assess. We meet with people. We start recommending kit or different kinds of technology that might be interesting to people in their living space. And then we move towards a tier 2, which is we do it together. So once the kit has been selected and purchased through our project funds, then we come alongside the site staff. And usually this is where we get a couple of support workers and a couple of residents who are especially interested and are really, what is that? How do you do that? Oh. And so we kind of come alongside and set these ecosystems up together, find new features that are interesting for people, and start kind of passing some ownership over to the local site. And then the tier 1 is the you do it part, which is when we pass kind of ownership of these technology ecosystems to the local site so that they are managing their own space, they're troubleshooting things, they have received and experienced some of the benefits and are motivated to keep pursuing technology even though it is not perfect and it is not always cooperative. But that is the portion where we have kind of built it across so that our specialist team does not stay on site, and every time something drops off the Wi-Fi, if the specialist team is not there, that it all falls apart. So this is the part where we've passed ownership across to the local team. So one of the things that we found, I chose an image of puzzle pieces because we found that all of this has to fit together pretty perfectly for there to be really positive outcomes, because to get the most out of technology for people in their spaces. So leadership has to be really excited about the potential for technology, and they really need to show that leadership by participating in the technology planning and learning about the tools, and by helping people embed it in their workflows and their daily lives, and committing a little time and resource to make sure that that tech gets used well. We also have to have a shared understanding of what independence should look like for disabled people who are living in a full-time care setting. And there has to be a shared belief that a person gaining more control over their daily lives and living space does not threaten or displace or reduce the critical role of skilled caregivers. It actually gives a really good opportunity for caregivers to support in the ways that they are most skilled at, rather than spending time making adjustments to the environment that can be smartified a bit. So with those beliefs and leadership qualities as a backdrop, training and skill development can really activate the most important behaviors from tech users and supporters, which is when people have a little bit of knowledge and skills, they're more confident in transferring those skills with a smartphone interface or with something that's familiar to how they support. They're engaged and they're more confident to find new features and try things that they have not been taught, and really push the limits of the art of what's possible with these tools when they grow in confidence and fluency with using them. And then support workers engage a little bit better because they know that they have a little bit of skill and knowledge, which is activated by support with leadership and the knowledge that they are able to spend their support time that way. So on the last image, I've shown a pile of colorful sweets spilled out over a white space. I think that there is a sweet spot for supporting technology. Just as in kind of the caregiving profession, too much support can be unhelpful and takes ownership away of tech use as a support. It takes that ownership away from the tech users themselves and the people who are supporting them. Not enough support means that people get frustrated and they don't have the confidence to problem solve or experience enough of the benefits for technology to feel worth the effort to keep moving with. So I think building a resilient skills infrastructure has to happen in the context of believing people have the right to access and use tools to take control over their interdependence and build the lives and experiences that they want. So training without values alignment and support might not take off, so all of those are considerations to make when you're using technology to bridge that digital divide. Thanks very much.
Great, thank you so much, Julie. At the end, we'll take any questions that you might have. I'd like to now turn it over to our second panelist, Irmgarda I gotta get this right, KASINSKAITE-BUDDEBERG. And you are the advisor for communication and information at UNESCO, and I want to welcome you to the panel today.
Thank you, Karen, for this introduction, and good morning, everybody. I'm here to speak about building media capacities on inclusion, equality, diversity issues. And before we go into this subject deep, I would like just to have a very quick kind of survey. How many of you watched the news this morning? Have you seen any news this morning? Have you checked newspapers? Received any messages? Yes? Well, not so many. I'm impressed by that. And how many, those who've seen or received any news, you saw something on persons with disabilities? I got up 3 o'clock in the morning to catch my train, actually train and plane from Paris to Vienna, and I saw few very short reportages. Both of them included persons with disabilities. I don't know just by chance or not, but both cases were one about recently earthquake which took place in Turkey, and the second one was about people with disabilities in Ukraine, ongoing conflict. So what does it mean? It means that from one side we can receive information from our devices, radio, television, internet, and we can be on general topics, but we as well could include issues related to inclusion, participation, diversity. And why it is important what media would report, because it's impacts our public perception, influences our views, opinion, and this is why it is important that media as well would be equally equipped to report accurately on disability issues. And this is why at UNESCO, which is one of the UN system agencies responsible for education, science, communication, and information, we as well promote that right to information and freedom of expression of persons with disabilities would be respected, and that media professionals would be trained to report on disability issues, and at the same time become more inclusive organizations who are responsible and recruit, provide accommodation to journalists, reporters, operators, or any other media professional with disabilities to do their work. And what we advocate as organization, we want to see what reporting has to be in conformity with UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And there are certain principles which have to be respected in reporting about persons with disabilities. And today, I would like to very briefly introduce you one of our handbook, what we prepared. It's our office in Beijing, together with our colleagues from International Labour Organization, prepared the training materials and handbook for training of media professionals. It was very successfully used in China and Mongolia. And I believe it is important for those, even if you are not a media professional, as well to know what to expect from media professionals and what are the frames that are used commonly by media professionals. And it could be as well applicable reporting about issues related to persons with disabilities. So what we see basically, what media can play an important role in raising awareness, combating stigma and discrimination, and change certain social perceptions and represent people with disabilities as part of human diversity. But what we see as well, what in reporting, there are some content which is maybe not necessarily very accessible, but it could be as well that certain elements which are included in reporting might actually reinforce stereotypes, reinforce discrimination about persons with disabilities, and maybe change the reality what people with disabilities have or face, and create certain stereotypes and myths which are not necessarily reflect the reality. So this is why we believe that media professionals have to be trained and capacity to provide accessible media content, and as well as accurate media reporting is important. So what I want to stress here as well, what we have to make sure that media understands how to report and is able to provide content which is accessible, used, shared, uploaded on online platforms, and it would be as well produced in accessible manner. And very often what we see, if, for instance, persons with disabilities are included in reporting, let's say, production of media content, we are those who are kind of part of your audience, what we call it news figures, those who just describe a situation. Let's say if someone is involved in one or another event, that would be a person who would be describing something what is going on, his opinion or her opinion is shared. But what we would like to see as well, what media professionals would involve people with disabilities and would consider them as important information sources. So it means be involved in how the story is produced, how it is presented, and to be considered as information source with many other ones, could be many other members of society who would be contributing to story development. And thirdly, what you see on the screen, we want as well to encourage what media organizations would not hesitate and would be ready to employ or to accommodate media professionals with disabilities needs and be able to adapt the working environments. So we believe this would contribute not only just to reporting purposes, but as well revision of management practices in media institutions. So here in the handbook, what you will see it at the end of the presentation, the link to the handbook, we identified common frames of media reporting concerning disability. And those who, and I would believe that most of you work in disability field, you know what we have kind of 4 major models for disability: traditional, medical, social, and human rights model. And media professionals, what we identified for different, let's say, analysis of documents, of media materials, discussions, and so on, we came to 8 frames which are being used to report on issues related to disability inclusion and participation. And here we could clearly see what, for instance, in traditional model, we have a frame which is use exclusion. That means that we don't have anything in the reporting about people with disabilities. We see it as well. Sometimes there are many events, charity events, which are organized. We could see it as well. There are media materials about motivation frame included. We can see it as well when it is reported about medical issues. There are aspects which are raised about correction. In social model, we have benefits, win-win kind of frames. And human rights-based approach, we see as well inspection, what is going on. It's more investigative, analyzing the situation, why certain things are not done, and how we are done, and so forth. And as well, empowerment frame. What we could see clearly, what media uses, not necessarily 1 or 2, but sometimes many of them, or in opposite one of them. And it is not really one it is wrong or other one is better. It depends very much what is the situation, what media professionals would like to communicate. And they could be used, one or few, or depending on the situation. And each of them is valid and could be used to present issues to the society. So here it is one of my final slides, and it's actually quite complicated one. So what I would like just to summarize here, because and I hope that you will see the handbook yourself, what media is, of course, responsible for reporting about persons with disabilities. We want to see as well what professional standards would be increased, ethical standards will be used, and the editorial independence would be ensured, taking into account principles of inclusion, participation, equity. And when media is reporting, what we call it media coverage on the column, what you see it probably on your left side, what starting from programming, what issues related to disabilities and principles which are applicable and used in a UN convention would be as well programmed into the, already at programming phase. We could see it as well, but there will be still many targeted reportings. That means if there is a special event, let's say like Paralympics, we would imagine that is really focused on that. But we would like as well to see what mainstreaming of disability issues and inclusion would become more standard approach, mainstreaming across different programs, and content production, media content, and again, so much content we have, what we consume online is not necessarily fully accessible, so that it would be, as industry would become more accessible in terms of content which is being distributed and disseminated. And secondly, what you could see it on the right side column, we would like to encourage media professionals, decision and policy makers, managers, but we would apply developed disability inclusive policies. But we would not hesitate, but we would be empowered and stimulated to recruit media professionals with disabilities or support those who inquired during the duty time. For instance, someone covered an event in a conflict area. Or let's say those who worked recently, last few years, we've seen so many media professionals who had to cover global pandemic. And at the beginning, as you remember, we had not really much information what will happen, what are the protective measures and so on. And media professionals have to do their work. So that means what we want to encourage what media institutions would become as well more inclusive, and working conditions would be improved, but certain procedures would be introduced in workplace, and certain self-monitoring and accountability mechanisms would be introduced in media institutions. But we would be able to, first of all, to assess what is the quality of content, what disability or inclusion principles related to convention, whether we are taken into account, and then we would have systematically voice of people with disabilities, what opinions, expressions would be introduced in as often as possible. And actually what we would like to see mainstreaming going through all programming which goes to the other members of society. So I'll stop here. I hope that the PowerPoint would be shared, and I invite you to look at this handbook and as well apply principles which are here proposed for media professionals, but I believe as well some of them could be applicable to other fields. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Irmgarda, thank you so much for that. We'll be back to you with questions after we hear from our final panelist. I'd like to introduce you to Susanna LAURIN, who is the Chief Innovation and Research Officer at Funka. Susan, will you please introduce yourself and tell us about your work?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so hello and welcome everyone, and happy to be back in Vienna, and good to see so many people here in the room. When we started, it was almost no one, and now it's almost full, so that's good. I think we had a good time waiting. So I'm here to talk about a project that we have been creating in Sweden. It's so the image is in Swedish now, so don't try to read that if you are not a Swedish reader. But it's just to let you know, to get you an impression of what this is about, because this is a platform, and we started out with winning an innovation competition in Sweden, and now we are awarded also in the Zero project, so it's kind of full circle. We just do prizes with this project. But Funka is a small consultancy. We are focusing on accessibility, of course, and we were founded by the disability movement in Sweden. We are accessibility experts, but we have a very broad view on what accessibility is, so we do not only work with people with disabilities, but also language issues or stress or mental issues and so on. But anything that has to do with human interaction and technology. And we actually also do a little bit on the built environment and transportation as well. We do, except for being consultants, we also have a research and innovation department that I lead together with a fantastic team, and we do a lot of policy work and studies and standardization and all of those boring things that really is important to make accessibility work. And in this specific project, we work together with the County Administrative Board in Skåne, which is south of Sweden. And nobody understands what the County Administrative Board does, but that is kind of a fourth level of bureaucracy that we have invented in Sweden. It's like regions, but they do other things. But they also do very interesting things. Like they have in Sweden right now, and since many years, they have an ongoing assignment, governmental assignment on payment services. So that has to do with Wi-Fi, making sure that we have a good internet connection also in geographically varied areas and so on, but also, of course, accessibility services so that the payment can be made by everyone. So it's important that everyone in society can pay taxes, for example, but also that they can pay for their books or cinemas or whatever. So they also have a very good network with many different stakeholders. So we at Funka, we have loads of testers and connections to disabled persons organizations and individuals. And we also do work with universities and banks and other stakeholders, of course. But the County Administrative Board, they also have an ongoing group with the banks and financial institutions and other stakeholders that work with everything that has to do with payment in society. And then also organizations for the elderly population and people with disabilities and so on. So it was very fruitful to work together with them in this project, so that this way we could have a lot of user involvement and also make sure that the result of the project was disseminated in a good way. So the purpose of this whole thing was to empower users to use the digital services, and this was also during the pandemic, of course, and one of the issues that we wanted to focus on in this project specifically was really to make sure that people can use the internet also for shopping, and that way kind of making sure that people are more independent. So not only empower people to try and to trust the system, so to speak, but also to make sure that they feel secure, because many people, when we interviewed specifically elderly, but also other user groups, claimed that it's dangerous out there, and if you use your credit card, then maybe somebody will skim it or things like that, which is true. But sometimes that kind of kept people back from trying. So it was technology, it was socioeconomical things, maybe you don't have connection or you don't have a computer, but also that you were afraid to try or that it's inaccessible. So there were many reasons that people did not use this technology. And another issue that we realized was motivation is really important here. Maybe it's not, I mean, there are some groups that really have those difficulties, but also we found quite large groups that would like that we thought could have benefited from shopping online, or at least understanding having the choice to shop online, but they didn't find the motivation. It seemed too far away from their everyday life, and they didn't really know what would be in it for them. That changed during the pandemic, I think, quite a lot, but still the motivation piece was something that we found was very crucial when we did the user research, because maybe they have once tried, or their grandchildren or a neighbor, somebody has tried to teach them, but it's so complicated if you're far away from using a computer or an iPhone in your everyday life, and then all of a sudden you're supposed to shop online and pay and do all sorts of things. That was kind of too cumbersome. So we needed to also make sure that we motivate people to dare try or want to try, otherwise we won't bridge this gap at all. So not only kind of classic training, but also other things. The target audience for this specific project, and I really need to stress this because normally we always pride ourselves with being very inclusive and always trying to get all users on board and all the target audiences, but this was a very specific project. It was a prize-winning project for a very specific target audience. So we covered people with cognitive impairments and a wide range here, so neurodiverse people, very independent, to people with intellectual disabilities, and also older adults, whatever that is. We usually say over 35. When it comes to digital divide, it's usually there where people start using internet in another way than the digital natives, and also anyone that we would call insecure users, so anyone who would prefer or rather use the phone or something else, but who don't feel comfortable with using internet for whatever reason that can be, and just anyone who doesn't shop online today. So to open the door to see if could this be something that could maybe be beneficial to you. And in the implementation of this project, we did a lot of user needs mapping and research and interviews and surveys and all of that. It was a two-step project, so we had a preparation phase as well, just to understand that we really got all the user needs right. And then we also looked at what existing platforms and training programs and what is out there already, because of course we are not the only one trying to solve this problem, so many people have tried, many organizations have tried this before. So we tried to see what is already out there so that we wouldn't reinvent the wheel. And after that, we made a requirement specification based on what we found the user needs that wasn't covered yet by the existing solutions. And then when we started doing this, it was really a co-creation process, and it was also a learning process for us, because this was then really during the pandemic, and we couldn't do all the meetings that we usually do with users, so we did almost everything online. And we thought that would be really, really hard, but I think we learned certainly during the way, but it went much better than we could ever have expected. And now we do almost all our user testing and user research online. So that was fascinating also for us. And we did, of course, a lot of user testing and iterations, so this was really the whole setup of the project. We worked constantly with the different user groups and focus groups as well, and did a lot of prototyping, and I need to shout out to our designer and UX designer, Lisa. She's not here, but she really, I've never seen anyone do so many illustrations during a project. So, and it turned out really, really interesting and good. And we also went, we had testers also with our language experts and so on. So we had all sorts of technical design, UX, and kind of the content part, doing testing in all sorts of ways. And together with the county administrative board, we also had demonstrations. So even if it wasn't ready, we did demonstrations, got feedback from a broader audience, and so on in different iterations. And then we also looked at the sustainability of this. So we have, together with our partners, we have agreed to make sure that this platform is still alive after the project end, because that is a usual problem, that good innovations kind of die after when the funding is off. So we will make sure together that this will still be out there, because it is already a lot in use. So we know that people like it. And we also have, there's a little bit of money in the system to actually do some maintenance as well. And now this is not working. So, and of course we also worked on dissemination for all these user groups. So the result of this is a game. And that is where the motivation came in, and what we really found was missing in many of the other training aspects. So we found good texts, good illustrations, good kind of manuals, wizards, and videos, and all sorts of things. But what the users we talked to, what they really wanted to do, and what was kind of missing all the time, was actually trying by doing yourself. They need to try to do things, otherwise it will be too big a step from the kind of theoretical training to when you actually go out there and do something. So we created a game, or it's a gamification training thing. So there is a shop we built, a small online shop where you can actually buy things, but you can't. But it looks like you can, and you can at least practice all the different steps that you do when you select what you find the thing you want to buy, you select the size or the color or whatever you are selecting, and then you choose how to get the delivery and how to pay and all of this. So you go through all the steps, and you do that in a gamified way, so that you always learn on the road, and you can you get points and so on. So it feels like a game, and it's motivating, and then you go to the next level, and then you do something more complicated the next time. And it's also built in a quiz, so that you also answer questions, so you learn kind of without knowing that you're learning this. And then there was also many things that we realized that we couldn't put everything we wanted to have in the platform into this game part. So we also have more in-depth material where we can also link to outside material, because some of the banks and credit card suppliers, they do have good information, and we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. And also, if those are updated, we didn't want to need to update our own material. So we are linking to others, and we have there, in the multimodal way we believe in that this should work. We have videos, we have illustrations, we have easy to read, we have text, we have all different formats of information, so that if you're interested more in security or more in how this specific payment method works, you can go to the in-depth material there. And we also created a glossary because we realized that this is early on, that really it's a lot about the terminology and the words used that make people unsecure. Is this the same thing? And many things online have more than one word. And even the shopping cart, or whatever you call that in English, can look in different ways. So there's no standardized way of doing this. I mean, if you are if you're used to doing online shopping, you think they're all the same. But if it's the first time, they're really, really different. So we needed to make sure that we don't just train on one way of doing this, or one term, or one icon, but really to show the variety of this, so that you get the trick, you get the kind of the method or the process right, and then you can hopefully get on out there and do things on your own. So, no, of course, when you shop in this place, no one is delivering anything to you, and you don't lose money. So that is the good part. But that is, of course, also the gap from this kind of secure environment to the reality. So there is still more things needed, and I think this is made for learning independently, kind of self-learning. But we have seen also a big use with groups that use this for training together and doing things together. So we also have a tutorial that helps the teacher, so to speak, to work with the material and use it in a good way. So we had some very good success stories in the early on. So individuals claiming to use this and people who are using it with their parents or kind of families and so on. But the really big ones are two groups. So SeniorNet is an organization in Sweden where seniors teach seniors digital, so peer-to-peer learning, and this is now part of what they are doing, so they use this material in all their training sessions, and everyone can access it. So that has been very helpful, because then you also talk to a person, and you can make these games together and maybe hopefully laugh and have a good time, but also learn and then push each other to get on with trying to do this in real life. And then the daycare centers, where they also, with people with intellectual disabilities, have been working together with a caregiver or somebody who's leading them into this, and that has been also extremely successful. And not all of them have, in this target audience, there's very broad variety. Some people do not handle money on their own, so they cannot shop, or they're not allowed to shop on their own, but some have more independence. And I think this platform is made so that it can be used for kind of empowerment, no matter what level you're at. So, yeah, and also in special education, this has been in one of the lists of the special education agencies in Sweden, has our platform as one of their kind of tips or recommendations. So what I hope now, or what we hope, the whole team, is that we will have the opportunity, hopefully now that we are also awarded another time for this, that we can do this, translate it into more languages and more regions, and also make sure that it's even more accessible, because from a technical standpoint, this is still, you need to be able to use a mouse, because that is how it was created with the co-creation of this specific target audience. They really wanted it to be a drag and drop and kind of so it's very visual. So to make this very good also for people with low vision like myself, or a blind user, we would need to make another stab at this. But this is what we really would like to continue working with, and I hope that we will have the opportunity to make this not only a success in Sweden for this target audience, but also for more users and more regions. I think that was my last one, but I can't click. So hopefully that was the end. Thank you.
Susanna, thank you so much, and congratulations on your Zero Project Award as well. Great, so thank you to all the panelists. I have a couple of just questions I wanted to ask each of you following your presentation. So Julie, I think it's really interesting the work that you're doing, particularly in the care homes, and how you're balancing this idea of independence when people are in a more segregated setting, right? So If you could talk about, just for a minute, just how you identified, like, what the needs of the folks that you worked with in the care homes are. Like, how did you identify how they might use technology just in various aspects of their daily life? And then, do you have any success stories that you might want to share?
Sure, thank you. So we identified opportunities for using technology by kind of just chatting with people. We met with people in groups, we met with people individually, and asked them what kinds of things they like to do, how they like to spend their days, kind of in a barrier-free existence, how would they spend all of their days? And we found out that a lot of people have lost touch with reading and used to really enjoy reading or music, but they no longer can purchase music, and so they don't get to listen to certain kinds anymore unless it's on the radio. And so we kind of just got to know everybody really well, and what they're interested in, and kind of thought I think we have a tool that we know about that we can give people a little bit more control back over that space. We can empower them to access that thing that they have not had in a long time. So that was one of the ways that we were meeting with people. And I'm sorry, what was the
Just,
second
do you
part
have
of
a
your
quick
question?
success story?
We did have one, we've had lots. My favorite one is still the man who got to feed his own fish because he had a voice-activated aquarium feeder, which was, we kind of cobbled together different pieces of Bluetooth kit. It was a combination of a little reservoir that would sit on the side of an aquarium, and then a button press, a voice-activated just button press that would push the button on the thing that was not very smart to release a little bit of fish food, and then he could tell. He didn't use his voice, but he used a vocal output device to say, "Alexa, let's feed the fish." And then his vocal output device would say, "Let's feed the fish." And then he would get to watch while the food dropped down into the tank. And the joy that he had he got to take care of his own pet instead of watching the people who are supporting him take care of his pet while he kind of enjoyed it the rest of the day. But it was incredibly empowering for him to get to manage that part of his life.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Irmgarda, I loved what you talked about with regards to just how media can advance the disability movement, right? But also on the flip side, how, when done poorly, can reinforce very negative stereotypes of disabled people. So I guess I'm curious, and also the importance of accessible media, right? Because we're talking about that today. So I guess one thing that I was curious about is, we have people here in the audience all around the world, and if folks wanted to go back and work in their local media markets to advocate for change in the media, representation, accessibility, what's one place that they could start? Like, how would they start? Do you have a recommendation or a takeaway you might want to leave with the audience?
That's a very good question and not easy, actually. I would suggest if you're asked to give an interview, do it. And don't hesitate as well to give a small talk or lesson or recommendation for media professional how to report. Sometimes we don't know, or we don't know ourselves as well, how to approach. We can be in different parts of the world, we can be in different communities, we can speak different languages, and sometimes it's not obvious what kind of term to use. Maybe you don't like one term, and someone else likes the other one. Don't hesitate to say this. These are the small steps what you could encourage media professionals, first of all, to speak about inclusion, and secondly, if you have any access to or you work with media institutions, remind them again what you're part of society and your views are important. You are not just only people or we all together who just speak about certain things describing, but we are as well very important source of information, creativity, innovation, inspiration. And these are the things which would enrich media materials and as well would help media professionals to present world as it is. So small steps, depending where you are, what you do, but these are probably the few things that I would recommend to start with.
Start somewhere.
Yes.
Small steps, great, I love that. And then Susanna, you had talked about just the work you did to try to get to motivate people to use the tool. Can you say a little bit more about like that strategy? How did you get people to use it? And then I also want to hear a little bit more about your user testing, and did that involve also people with disabilities, and what did that look like?
So how many days do I have to answer that question?
You have like a minute.
So I just wanted to say to Julie that I love the fish feeding story, because what that says is that you can't do anything, you can't do policy, you can't do standards, you can't do anything without meeting the users. And that is the essence of what we do. We always do user testing, and we kind of start with the user. And of course, the users are with disabilities. I mean, sometimes we also talk to people who claim to not have a disability. I still don't know how that works, but I mean, that is the essence of what we do. But really, policymakers try to solve things for people without talking to the people. So I think that fish feeding, that I'll steal that one from you. Well, the motivation piece, it was not that we needed to motivate people to use the tool. It was rather that we realized that one of the reasons people are not shopping online or using payment online is that they didn't feel motivated to do that. So they didn't dare try some of the users that we talk to. They say, what's in it for me? Why would I do this? I can still, it's a... And then during the pandemic, that changed a bit, but still it was really hard to get them to want to try something that they weren't familiar with. And I think that is a very human, like all of us. I mean, now I'm too old to, when people come, oh, here's the new fancy phone, I go, oh no, I need to learn something new again. I just get tired. And I used to think that was the coolest thing.
Yeah.
But it's, so the motivation piece was, that is why we made it into a game, that we had the playful design and everything. It was to make sure that people felt kind of welcomed into the thing. So it wasn't like, now you are going to the school and you are going to be taught this and blah, 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 do this, do that, but more of a kind of nice experience. So that is the kind of the essence of this, the idea.
Made it fun, made it interesting.
Exactly,
Good. I want to just, in our remaining time, and I know we're going to need to end very shortly, but again, today really the common theme was how technology can empower people with disabilities and advance the disability movement. So just, do we have any questions from the audience for our panelists here? I don't know if we're able to take, right in front, Bianca?
Do we have a microphone?
Yes.
I do have a question, actually about the gamification of training. And one of the reasons is actually that in the Netherlands we had a report from the Authority of Financial Markets. And it was specifically written about access to banking instead of accessibility, which is often confused. And one of the things actually is that they are moving back to giving advice. And that's a really hard one because we have like 7 different banks and people are sent to the library to get some explanations about how to do digital banking. Do you think such training would work for digital banking too? Because of course we all have various apps. There's a huge difference in how to use these apps. Or would you rather say, okay, this is per bank, you should do this type of gamification with your own app? Because I think it would be a great solution but given the challenges we have as banks shared, it would be nice to see if we can do something together on this one.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that question. I think it's a very good idea, and I definitely think it could be made. And also the good thing with banks is that they have money. So, and I know, at least from the Nordic countries, that the banks really struggle, not only with people with disabilities, but many people find it really difficult to handle their internet banks. So they use quite a lot of money to just handle every month. The same people call into the bank and ask for help just to pay their rent or whatever. So I think there would be an interest, and I would be really happy to talk to you more about that. I think there's, you could use elements of this training to banking, definitely.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, in front. And Julie has to run off to be part of another panel, so unfortunately she had to step out. But if you have a question for her, please catch her in the hall. Go ahead.
Okay, does it work like this?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, first of all, thanks a lot for the inspiring and insightful presentation you just held. So my name is Paul Horstes. I work for the German Development Cooperation Agency, GIZ. We also have projects on digital skills for persons with disabilities in a number of partner countries. So one thing I was wondering about, I really like that peer-to-peer approach that you highlighted. But we are wondering, I mean, how to reach, especially in low resource settings or in a number of African countries, for example, the majority of persons with disabilities live in rural areas. So how to basically, deliver digital literacy in these kind of settings, and how especially to attach it to the institutions, you know, especially to educational institutions, because I think that's one of the most important things. So maybe you have some inspiring suggestions. Thanks a lot.
Question answered by either of my panelists here. Irmgarda?
Maybe I'll try. It is a very good question, because it's one thing to live in a country or to be in society where we more or less digital literate. But of course, there are situations, even locations and countries where digital literacy is probably something which needs to be improved. So I would say, if you want to reach out very remote communities, you may use as well traditional media, something like radio. On 13th of February, we were celebrating a World Day of Radios. And that's one media which is really exists for many, many decades, and is still very much useful. And having a very short lessons delivered using radio could be very useful. You can encourage, of course, it's not easy to do because you want to see it, obviously, but why not? You have to start somewhere. So radio could be used. We've seen as well around the world with libraries, information centers, community centers could be as well places where a small education hub could be established, where local community would come and would learn how to use one another technology. So these are the few things which could be used, or we could be really around and, of course, introduced to the community. We are maybe not the perfect ones, maybe we're not very sophisticated what we would like to see, but at the same time, these are the tools that we have in place.
Great, thank you.
And don't forget the mobile phone, because in many rural areas in poor countries, they do have mobile phones. They may not have computers, but the smartphone is sometimes very much in use. So you can also send out like nano training and things via phone, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right, but the smartphone, I mean, the mobile phone itself, it's not, I mean, the usage is not, I mean, there has to be an institution, you know, where this is taught. So but I get your point. I think libraries is a good, that could be a good anchor, but also making more use of traditional media. Thanks.
Great, thank you for that question. I believe we're at time. Unfortunately, we have to get ready for the next panel to come up, but I want to thank our panelists here today, and thank you for coming, being in Vienna, and thank you to everyone here that's in person and online. It was a pleasure. Thank you.